What's Kon Knueppel's ceiling? Will Khaman Maluach be an elite defender? And is there a Duke guard later in the draft that could be a steal? We're talking all things Duke with JJ Jackson of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with you on this Thursday, and we are talking all things Duke and the Blue Devils with JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils. He's going to be on in just a moment here to make sense of Khaman Maluach, Kon Knueppel. We're going to look at Sion, James, Tyrese, Proctor, everything with the Duke guys in this draft. But of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. So before we get to JJ here, an announcement that went out in some press releases yesterday. Locked On Pelicans, along with Locked On Saints, Locked On LSU, and Locked On SEC, is now available. Well, it'll be available on Monday the 16th on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Yes, the same channel where you watch Pelicans games for free. 7.1 in New Orleans, 9.3 in Baton Rouge. Locked On Pelicans is now going to be on there. We've got a 2-hour Locked On block every day from 10 to noon. Locked On Pelicans is going to be on Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. Really cool to be on the same channel where the Pelicans games are playing. More on the partnership and everything to come later in the future, but really cool to get the show on there. And look, it's because of fans like you and your support and how much you care about the team, wanting the content out there. Pelicans wanted us on there. So really cool to see, really excited to be partnering with the Pelicans, Gray Television, and Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. So now that that announcement is out of the way, I'm really excited about that one. Let me know if you're excited in the comments down below. Let's get to it with JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils. Joining me now on Locked On Pelicans, I got JJ Jackson of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. JJ, I've been on your show a couple of times, but I get to turn the tables on you here now.
Absolutely. Who knew that we had such a big connection over the years between Duke and the Pelicans down there in the Bayou? So I'm fired up to be here, Jake.
Look, I'm thrilled to have you on and get your expert opinion on a number of the Duke players, because there's two in particular in Kon Knueppel and Khaman Maluach that I think are really in play for the Pelicans at 7. So let's kind of dive into it. I want to start with Kon Knueppel. The way I've kind of viewed him is maybe the safest pick in the top 10 outside of maybe like Cooper Flagg, but sure. you very clearly see a very good floor for Kon Knueppel. At the very least, this is a guy that's going to shoot it at about 40% from 3 at the NBA level. I'm a little uncertain about what his ceiling could be and who he could become in the NBA. What do you think that is? What did you see from him this year at Duke?
I had a hard time putting a ceiling on him for his freshman year at Duke, right? And so now to think about what that could be at the next level is an even harder challenge. Going into this past season, Isaiah Evans was a freshman on Duke's basketball team who was regarded in draft circles and the high school recruiting rankings greater than Kon Knueppel. And a lot of people thought that would be the role that he had, what ended up being Kon Knueppel this season. So for him to be as effective of a scorer, an initiator for Duke, running pick and rolls with Cooper Flagg, with Maluach there on the inside, this was a guy who you just could not knock him off his game. He was so level-headed, so steady throughout the course of the year. I don't want to necessarily throw a ceiling out there for him because he's been able to do so much and impact winning in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think, when you watch him, right, you see an NBA player. He moves like one. The shooting is really good. And then you mentioned, an area on offense that I think he's probably underrated in, and that's the playmaking side of things. He looks like a guy that can run an NBA pick and roll, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, when he was able to do that with Maluach and Flagg, two guys that are going to be top 10 picks in their own right, when you look at what the draft looks like this season, you feel good that that's going to be able to translate to the next level. Obviously, Knueppel benefited from playing on such a talented Duke
stacked
team.
Duke team.
Yeah. I mean, the starting five is all going to be drafted. I mean, that's a really, really special place for that team to be in. Still stings that they weren't able to get the job done and fell just a bit short there in the Final Four. But with Knueppel specifically having so many options, I've talked about the role people a lot in this scenario, but also his ability to see a Tyrese Proctor or a Sion James or an aforementioned Isaiah Evans as kick-out potential there to knock down shots, and his ability to finish. Yeah, his game was certainly suited to be the initiator.
So do you think that's an area he's got room to grow in? 2.7 assists aren't going to jump out a lot of people if you're just kind of looking at his season-long numbers, but it seems like, to me, this is a guy that if Cooper Flagg wasn't on the team, he would have been the number one scoring option. And we'd probably be looking at a guy that was in the 18 to 19, 20 point per game range versus the 14.4 that he had this year.
It's so hard to put that in, if Cooper Flagg wasn't on the team.
Right.
That's a really frequent conversation that I've been trying to have in Duke circles right now because of seriously how good Kon Knueppel's freshman season was. Where does this guy rank amongst the great Duke freshmen? It's so hard to put something out there because Cooper Flagg was with him the entire course of the way. But looking at him, his ability just to impact winning in so many ways, I've mentioned that already, but on the defensive end of the floor, putting his body on the line, he was always one of the first guys to dive after loose balls, all the things that coaches love to see. Absolutely gritty competitor for this Duke team. I mean, yeah, he was so much fun to watch.
So you mentioned the defense there, kind of putting his body on the line, and you can see it with just the basketball IQ, something I think the Pelicans would really like to add to this team. With that basketball IQ, he's, at worst, an average defender, I'd say, especially at the NBA. Rookies take a minute to kind of adjust to all of that. Where do you see him kind of landing in terms of defense with his, not elite athleticism at the NBA level?
No, I certainly don't want to, get way too excited about what he's going to be able to do defensively, because I know that when you're comparing the two, the offense is obviously way more advanced than his defensive game. But this is a big guy, man. When you're watching him play basketball, Jake, I don't know, but when I'm watching him, I'm not concerned at all about being pushed around, right? He's got a bulky frame to him. At times almost feels a little top heavy when you see him initiating things from time to time. So defensively, I don't think he's going to be pushed around at all. I just worry, is the foot speed going to be quick enough to stay out there with some bigger guards and that sort of quicker guards?
Yeah, I worry a little bit with that. Not overall, right? No rookie is going to be, unless you're Herb Jones or someone like that, a lead on the defensive side of the ball your rookie year. It usually takes a couple, but whoever the Pelicans draft at 7, and let's say it's Kon Knueppel here, is you're maybe penciling in him as a starter or one of your first guys off the bench. And you would imagine that he's going to have a more outsized role, larger role than he might on a different team. And going to be targeted on defense because of that. And knowing head coach Willie Green, does that then mean Kon Knueppel is going to get buried or not get minutes if he's not doing enough on that side of the ball? And that's not a Kon Knueppel thing. That's probably more of a head coach Willie Green kind of thing, but something that worries me a little bit. So look, I know you pay pretty close attention to the Pelicans with a lot of the Duke connection and everything here. He seems tailor-made to fit next to Zion Williamson.
Yeah, the fact that I got to, watch a full season of throwing lobs to Cooper Flagg, of throwing lobs to Maluach throughout the course of the season. And now you're asking me to picture what it looks like with Zion flying above the rim and finishing from Kon Knueppel passes. Absolutely, he's going to be ready for that. I mean, Kon Knueppel's been a winner his entire life and loves having kind of above the rim threats around him. This is a guy that has come from a basketball family and is just such a fun player to watch.
Do you have an NBA comp for him?
I struggle in that department, Jake. I'll be honest.
So no, it's all good. Those, I like putting people on the spot, but it's a bit of an unfair question, totally. But Like it seems like people are worried about his ceiling as a player. And I'm like, I actually think it might be higher than we think, kind of what you alluded to in the beginning, just because he was kind of deferring to Cooper Flagg the whole season, as he should have been, obviously, but he looks like he can be a really good player. You mentioned one of his teammates, Khaman Maluach. Let's talk about him coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is my go-to ticketing app for a number of reasons. Look, they just have the best prices that I've seen out there. You look at that Celtics-Knicks series, they had zone deals that were offering 60% off great sections for an awesome playoff game. What I also love is the panoramic seat view. You can see the exact seat, your exact view before you buy, so there's no surprises, particularly if you go into a place you've never been to before. And with the Game Time guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same section and row for less, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. And look, it's a live event. You want to be there in the atmosphere, in the action, and Game Time is the best way to do it. And with the NFL season out, the schedule out, you can find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And starting next Monday, you can now watch the Pelicans on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday starting at 10:30 a.m. So I'm talking with JJ Jackson of our Locked On Blue Devils podcast. We just covered Kon Knueppel here. Let's move on to a different position, and Khaman Maluach, the starting center from Duke. I've seen his name go as high as 4 in mock drafts, falling to kind of the mid lottery. The dude is massive and has all of the size you want for an NBA center. Tell me a little bit about his season, what you saw from him.
It's very rare that you're able to talk about a basketball player, Jake, that competed in the FIBA Olympics before they ever played a college basketball game, right?
Yeah, it's pretty unique. Huh?
And that's where we're at with Maluach, right? So he competed for South Sudan. Their FIBA program is led by longtime NBAer Luol Deng, who played, of course, at Duke for a season before he was a lottery pick to start his career. So there was that connection already. But Maluach is a guy who still to this day has been playing basketball for less than 5 years. I mean, he's still so young.
He started at 13,
that it's like so exciting to think about what he can be as he continues to evolve and continues to get better. And over the last few seasons for Duke, he continues this long run of bigs that Duke has had. When you look at Mark Williams to Derek Lively to Kon Maluach. So after the Olympic run, when he first arrived on campus, Duke had Derek Lively fresh off his finals run as a rookie there as well. And there's actually really good content that I'd encourage Pelicans fans to go out there and seek from Duke basketball themselves of a workout one-on-one with Lively and Maluach, learning what he just learned from his 1 year at Duke and 1 year in the NBA already. And you instantly saw that type of lob threat and then defensive force from Maluach throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, the Pelicans need to add some size, and at 7'1" with a 7'7", 7'8" wingspan, like this is a dude who has
That's
it.
Size
here.
to me.
Yeah, that is size. The Pelicans are still in the need of some rim protection, and while his shot blocking numbers like don't jump off the page at you, and some of the advanced stats don't like love him in that regard, he's still probably better than anyone the Pelicans would have. Like I would imagine he would be a day one starter over last year's first round pick Yves Missi, and just give you like a slightly different dimension there. Like this is a guy that kind of jumps out as a really tough nosed player and has really good mobility for someone of his size. Like his athleticism is what you want in that prototypical big man. And you've also seen the NBA trending at least a little bit more, going back to kind of a bigger league, kind of some of these type of centers. And you could run a two big lineup of maybe Yves Missi and Maluach out there with Zion at the 3 or something like that. His athleticism, was he mainly used as a rim protector, Duke? Did he defend on the perimeter? What did that look like on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, fortunately for Duke, when you had a great defender in Cooper Flagg and then some of the other guys that we're going to talk about, it makes it so much easier, right? But one of the biggest things that Duke was able to do in their Elite Eight game against Alabama, a team that had just set the NCAA tournament record in three-pointers made in their Sweet 16 matchup, was Duke asked Maluach to switch out there on the perimeter, take some matchups there defensively, and he held his own, right? So he wasn't asked to do this all that frequently, but when the season's on the line and I need our big player to make some big stops defensively, he was able to do that. I thought that was huge for the Duke basketball team, is that you saw that growth and evolution of his defensive game throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, and I think, when we were talking about Kon Knueppel and his fit with Zion, right, as just a vertical lob threat, Zion's going to be handling a lot of kind of the point guard duties for this team, particularly if they don't draft a point guard at 7 overall or get someone in this draft this offseason and they don't have a lot of money to spend. So if you can still not go that direction, get Maluach at 7 if you think he's going to be that kind of elite player, because he will end up doing some vertical spacing. I think, when you watch him play, one of the biggest questions I have when it comes to bigs is, how are their hands? You see some dudes who basically have like boulders for fists and the ball hits them and they just can't catch a ball for anything, especially at the speed some of these NBA point guards zip the ball in. His hands are pretty soft. Like, this is a guy that seems like he can corral anything, handle any type of pass, doesn't always put the ball on the floor, which if you're watching the NBA finals, you've seen the Pacers big men do, and that's immediately going to result in a steal. His hands really jump out at me with like some finesse and touch to them.
Absolutely. I mean, you think looking at the numbers this past season, Maluach finished with 81 dunks on the season for Duke. In perspective, Derek Lively, who I'm putting this back to, had just 54.
Oh, that's his NBA comp, it seems like. That was pretty easy.
Had just 54 dunks in one season for Duke. So when you're able to just throw it up there, let the guy go get it and come down and finish, like, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And then I think the next big question, Jake, is just what can you add offensively to his game? Because
that's where we're going next.
I want to go back to, if I can, to the Olympic run that he had with South Sudan, right? I mean, this is a team that obviously was not matched at all to win by any stretch of the imagination. But Duke's first opportunity to see Maluach in live competition is against Team USA, because they're in the same group. And the first thing you see Maluach do is knock down a corner 3 with Joel Embiid running out to and contest and knock it down. And you assume, oh my goodness, what is this going to be this year when he comes out and plays? And he finishes the year 4 of 16 from 3, right? So the attempts just were not there, and 25% is nothing to write home about. But he shot nearly 80% from the free throw line.
I was about to bring that.
Is really, really impressive.
I mean, that's the type of skill that could make him an all-star level player, right? You look at swing skills for some of these NBA prospects, and look, for like probably 50% of them, the swing skill is shooting. But that's normally on a guard, a wing, someone like that. You're rarely talking about that for a center. Everything else for Maluach seems good, and I'm not worried about it at the NBA level. At the very least, he's a backup big man that's going to have a long career because of his size and the rebounding ability in the hands that he has. But if he can develop some sort of spacing in terms of shooting, he becomes a very special kind of player, I think. Then you're looking at, a better Brook Lopez kind of player. And he was, in Defensive Player of the Year running and everything for it all. If you can get Maluach doing that, it's really good. His numbers for free throw shooting this year was 76.6%. That's an incredible number for someone of his size. And that goes back a while. Every level you watch him play, the dude has a good stroke. He's got good form. He's got good touch on the ball, as you said. If he can develop that And it seems like he could. It's maybe theoretical at best, but this isn't someone like, another player we could look at in this draft and be like, oh yeah, that dude's never going to develop an outside shot. Maluach seems like he could.
And isn't this the fair spot to mention and remind people again that he's barely played basketball? And
barely played basketball.
When, we've got so much tape out there from all these other guys that started when they were 3, 4, they're drafted and we're able to see them in diapers playing basketball. That's not the case with Maluach. I mean, that is incredibly exciting to think about. Okay, now this is going to be your full-time job, is to be this basketball player. Get to work, and the jump shot can come along.
Exactly. He's going to be able to contribute at the NBA level as a rookie, even without that jump shot. So it's not like he needs this immediately. And if that shot's not followed, it's like, well, we can't play him. There are NBA skills that you see in him. We're gonna go a little rapid fire next. Look, I'm a Tulane guy. I gotta ask you about Sion, James. I was looking around to see what Tulane stuff I have. I got a cup here with me.
There we go.
So we're gonna get into him, Tyrese Proctor. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Wayfair. Look, there's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped the heat into a personal oasis. So if you're wanting to upgrade your patio this season, Wayfair has made it so easy to turn it into a space that feels like you. Comfortable, stylish, ready for summer. Wayfair is everything you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, yes, even the perfect string lights to set the vibe. It's like giving your backyard that resort feel without the resort price tag. I love Wayfair for the free delivery. Do you have a big truck to go lug things around? Wayfair, it's free, easy, delivered right to your door. You don't even need to worry about it. And their prices, they're fantastic. Basically, my whole place is furnished by Wayfair. So don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head over to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're just going to get right into it here. I got to ask you about Sion, James, where you see him falling in this NBA draft. Him and Proctor both seem like end of first round, early second round kind of guys. If the Pelicans end up trading down, could you go for a Tyrese Proctor? Could you go for a Sion, James, to add them a little bit later, try and add some depth, because they do both look like they have NBA skills?
Could you go for them? Yes. Should you go for them? Also, yes. Really big on both of these guys, right? Because they're experienced. They've got multiple years of college basketball. Proctor, a guy that, when he first came and played to Duke a year early, had from Australia, played in the NBA Academy over there. It was a big deal that he came back for his sophomore season. Woj broke the news that Proctor was coming back for another year, and that never happened at that time.
Right.
Where Woj is breaking draft decisions for guys going back to school, and that was the praise and accolade that Proctor had, who had an incredible season shooting from the outside. And then for Sion James, to your point, had a really good career for Tulane, but unfortunately for the Green Wave, we're not doing too much to get to the NCAA tournament, and being on this big of a stage. That was the question so many had for James, is how is he going to do with the brighter spotlight on him? And man, he stepped up to the test. Started off the year coming off the bench, won the starting job, and Duke never looked back once he took over that starting guard role.
No, he's shown a lot, I think, in like the 3-point shooting his senior year at Tulane, and this year was really good. And if he can maintain that, he projects as kind of like a 3-and-D wing, and everybody needs those in the NBA. If that shot doesn't translate to the NBA, I'm a little more worried about Sion James. He's not really like a primary creator, but team defenders like that can definitely carve out roles at the NBA level. Proctor's just got good size at that point guard position, I think, and a good passer too. And the Pelicans need to add some depth there. So those are two guys that I am also like, I'm not taking them in the lottery, but if you trade back and you trade that 7th pick for maybe with the Nets and you end up in the mid-20s and you draft a big or a wing with a pick in the teens, take one of those guys, because I don't think they're going to let you down. at the NBA level. JJ, I appreciate you coming on and breaking down some of the Duke prospects for me. Tell everyone where they can find you over the Locked On Blue Devils podcast.
Yeah, real simple. Locked On Blue Devils, wherever it is that you get your podcast, talking all things Duke basketball. We're all over the NBA. Let's get more Duke players to the Pelicans. That'd be awesome.
Look, I like it. I like all of these guys. I think they're all going to be great at the NBA level. So I appreciate you chopping it up with me here. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. I appreciate y'all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.